Arrow Season 4, Episode 20, Genesis. Now in this episode we have kind of the big plan from Damien Darhk after he kills off two extra members of Hive for kind of leaving him to die in prison. And ultimately going through this whole episode, it was a really Diggle, centric focus, and we had him dealing with his brother once again, which we've had I feel for a very long time. At this point, he's kind of struggling with the fact that his brother's come back to life. He's a good guy, so he's arguing with the rest of the team, and then he's a bad guy, so he's arguing with himself. And then in this episode, he's kind of continuing on that path where it's like, I have to ultimately confront this issue with my brother who is unfortunately under my control, simply put. And it was actually kind of fun going through that. I thought it was enjoyable to watch Diggle kind of deal with this issue of being alone without the team for most of the episode at least, and trying to figure out how does he protect his family while also fighting against the brother he thought was dead and who he now knows is still evil even after the whole resurrection thing, or not even real death, it's not even resurrection. And it was pretty cool. I enjoyed the action for this episode. I think the story elements were actually really well done for this one compared to some of the other stuff we've seen, which lately it's been fairly good, especially like the Laurel stuff. Even though it was sad, it was still entertaining. But as far as the Damien Darhk stuff, I think this is one of the better episodes, just focusing on him as a villain, and really it focused, because it was so much on Diggle, it was Andy as kind of the main catalyst for Damien Darhk's latest plan in this episode. And as much as I enjoyed this one, the only good thing that happened is none of the heroes died. Other than that, everything kind of fell apart. I mean, I guess technically Oliver survived, so that was a good scene as well, which was really good because they had a nice little hint, which was very, very interesting. And no flashbacks this episode, but we got a glimpse of something that we will see in a future episode from the flashbacks, but I'll get to that later. But pretty much everything kind of fell apart in this episode. It started off pretty simple. They have to figure out how do we stop Darhk. He's kind of shown up. Two other Hive members are gone. Diggle is just chasing after his brother. It's like, alright. Oliver kind of splits up the team. It's like, everybody take a break. I'm going to learn some magic, and then we'll come back and deal with Darhk. And it's chaos for everybody. He can't figure out the magic thing, which ultimately works out. Thea ends up being kidnapped and taken to like this crazy underground entire city, and she's just running around. Like, it starts off kind of normal, and then it's like, oh, I just randomly fell asleep and woke right up, so of course she got drugged. Then we find out that her boyfriend is also being drugged. He's under the mind control as well, which doesn't surprise me. I thought they weren't going to reveal anything in this episode exactly, but he said the exact same line he said before. He was like, I'm not just a cutthroat operative or something like that. It's the exact same line. I'm like, that's exactly how he said that last time. It was almost robotic. So I was like, he's either under some sort of control or he's kind of just saying his lines pretty much. And I was like, that was really odd that he said the exact same thing. And now it makes sense because he's just under mind control. It's like, well, I'm not this, I'm also this. So it was pretty cool watching that take place. And which was, I thought was an amazing scene. She's like, you don't hear that everything's repeating in sounds. Like, that's something crazy to pick up. But it was really cool because there were no people, which was very suspicious because they clearly like walked around the block and there were just no people. It's only the two of them. And then the sound thing, was like, okay, I'm pretty sure she's right on this. I highly doubt she's picking up something and she's wrong. So as soon as she said that, I was like, okay, she's definitely in some sort of crazy simulation or something really weird. I wasn't 100% sure. And then it's like, oh, it's 8 o'clock, but it's really bright outside. And he's like, oh, well, we're up north, like not Alaska north. So it was just like clear. I thought, he was just working with them, but then he's under mind control. So he's kind of with Hive. So the other woman that came in the last episode, like, oh, you're working with Hive. Technically, she wasn't wrong. Just unfortunately, he's under mind control, which we still don't know if there's a cure for that because we've had this whole arc with Andy being under the mind control, and we found nothing because they thought he was cured, and when they found out he wasn't, they haven't really had time because it led to someone's death, so they've been in mourning, and there hasn't really been any talk of like, oh, we need a cure. They thought they already did that, and then it was wrong. So we still don't know if there really is a cure or anything like that for people who've taken these pills, and if there's really any hope for them. And unfortunately, even if there is, it won't be for Andy because by the end of this episode, Diggle officially has to kill his younger brother. And I was very surprised that that's how they ended it. I mean, I guess it was kind of obvious in a sense because there was just there never seemed to be even remotely a plan as to how they could do it without somebody dying. Like every time they came up against each other, it was just guns blazing. Specifically this episode, like as soon as they saw each other, it was just like, I'm shooting at you, you're shooting at me. They're running down city blocks, shooting around corners. Whole episode, they're just chasing each other and shooting at each other. And even when it comes to a head at the end of the episode, it's like, you won tonight, nobody died, but you can't protect your daughter for the rest of her life. She has to go to school. You can't protect your wife 24/7. She can't just be cooped up in that little, in the mobile truck for the rest of her life. So we will come after you. It's just not going to stop. And unfortunately, Diggle just kind of had to kill his brother. It was kind of by accident because he mentioned his brother went for the gun, which I didn't notice during that scene. It looked like he turned away, but I guess that was when he did it. I just didn't notice that Andy moved for the gun, but it happened. So his brother is officially dead, and I don't know how that's going to play out because he's been going through this crazy arc of hating his brother seemingly way too much. Early on when it first started, it was like he hated his brother way too much for the not being dead thing. And then it's like, oh, he's under mind control. We cured him of mind control. We can trust him. And then we can't trust him. I screwed up. And he's hating himself. And now he's going through this whole crazy arc. And it culminates to nothing good for him. Like his brother, he had to kill his own brother. So I'm pretty sure in these final, couple episodes this season, that's going to be a big deal. And I don't know if he'll act the same way he has been the past couple episodes, because he was really on edge the past couple episodes, and then this one was like the tip, like this was it, and he was losing his mind. He wasn't waiting for backup. He got himself captured because of that, and he was stabbed and tortured and stuff like that. So, he kind of screwed up. Like, it definitely went backwards, and that is what led to Damien getting exactly what he wanted, which was like the crazy chip embedded inside of Lyla's arm. So they have Rubicon, and they will now be able to control all the nukes basically on the planet once they kind of hack through everything. So it was kind of a crappy episode as far as accomplishments for the team. Like nobody, like I said, none of the heroes died, but ultimately, the plans for the villains really worked. I mean, Damien Darhk, I'm sure doesn't give a crap that Andy's dead. Like, oh well, it's one random guy with a machine gun now. It was a great distraction. It probably helped him even more because it kind of distracted one of the members of the team a lot, because obviously the family connection. So he might be a little upset, like, oh, I lost that like really good, ace in the hole when I needed for a mission. But other than that, he got exactly what he needed with this mission. So it kind of balances out. He has his ultimate goal, and the team separated because they don't know where Thea is. We'll have to see what happens with Oliver kind of gaining as far as, the lightness and, being the opposite of Damien Darhk and the darkness and death and stuff like that. So that should be interesting to see him kind of advance once Damien gets even more powerful, because we haven't really seen him utilize kind of the death aspect. We saw him do that like maybe really early on. We saw him do that, but excuse me, every time he kills somebody now, it doesn't seem to really have much of an effect. Like, oh, he gets more power. We don't see anything happen like when he killed the people early on, which is really cool. Like, he stops the bullet and kills the one guy, but the woman, he's like, I forgot exactly what he did. It looked like he just did this, and like he snapped her neck as she was running. I was like, that was kind of an interesting way to do that. And when he caught Lyla and he like freezes her in place and then he like spins her around and stuff, and they have like cool little sound effects to go with it. I like that. I thought it was a nice little touch, because normally when he stops someone, it's just like boom, he stops them and he's doing like, a Star Wars force choke, and that's really it. But he was like, different positions and spinning people and stuff like that. And I like that. I thought it was a cool little touch that we haven't seen too often. I don't know if they've ever done the sound effects. I'm sure this isn't the first time and I just never noticed it. But he's doing like this and this in like one scene, so they have a bunch of different sound effects. So I may have missed that every other time it's happened, but I noticed it in this episode, and I enjoyed it. It was cool that we got a reference of Constantine. Sadly, of course, he did not show up, but I enjoyed that portion. I thought what they were going to do when Oliver failed was actually have Felicity do it, because that just seemed to make perfect sense. Like, she's the nice person, and everything they were saying seemingly was going to lead to Felicity's the one who has to repel the magic. She has to, like, kind of jump in front of somebody or be there, and I thought it was sort of an area of effect type of deal, like his magic kind of is, and she would just kind of cancel out the magic. So I don't know if that's how it's gonna play out, where if Oliver embodies more hope and light or whatever, that it's gonna save more people, or if it really only works when Damien's trying to get one person at a time. But I was surprised that it actually led to Oliver being the one who actually did it, because it was like, oh, I won't be able to do it and stuff like that. But he did it at the end. And the really surprising part about that is his eyes lit up, which was a connection to all the little glimpses of stuff, like all the worst moments of his life. And then we saw the woman from the flashbacks, and she has yellow eyes. And I thought, oh, she's like about to blow up or something bad happened to her. But I guess that was her fighting against the guy. I completely forgot his name, but the villain of the flashbacks. I'm gonna assume that that was her fighting against him, maybe at random, and like trying to save everybody else, so she's able to like repel the dark magic or something. But her eyes lit up yellow, so maybe she doesn't actually die, which I thought was interesting, because that's what I thought they were giving us in the thing, like, yep, she's dead. And then they showed the ending of this episode, and I was like, maybe she's the reason they get off the island. So I thought that was a nice little touch, nice way to do that. That was probably one of the most interesting things they've done with the flashbacks, and it was like 1 second long. It was just a quick glimpse, and it tied in better than most of the episodes we've had with the flashbacks, ironically. But I enjoyed this one for sure. I thought it was really fun leading up to kind of the disaster. We still have Thea trapped in like this other area. She's, I'm assuming, going to be like fully in prison now that she's kind of run around and she ran into the guards. I'm sure they'll just be like, well, now she officially knows. Let's just put her in an actual cell. And they might do that with the guy as well. But I don't know. They might not have to, because he's on the pills and, the manipulation and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. But I certainly enjoyed this one. The one weird thing is that Merlin was in the beginning of this episode. Typically, when he's in an episode, it's like they use John Barrowman in a lot of the episode, but he was in like the beginning, and then he was nowhere else to be seen. I was actually very surprised by that. I was like, huh, he's not like one of the actors that they bring in for like one scene, because he's in another show right now, if I remember right, unless that's on like break or whatever. But I was really surprised that he was just in like one little scene. But it was probably from like another episode where it was like, let's just film this since you're already here, maybe. But that kind of surprised me. I was like, oh, he showed up in like one scene and then he was gone. He's never in like one shot, because they always utilize him a lot. So maybe that just kind of carried over from one of the other episodes he was in a lot. But ultimately, I enjoyed this one. It really sucked for Diggle that all the craziness ended badly. It started pretty bad, and he was angry and sad and stuff like that. And then it just ends in disaster for him, because he had to ultimately kill his brother. So it's all kind of bad. Like, ultimately, everything sucked. The villains won this episode. Andy had to, Andy dies. Diggle has to actually kill him himself. He doesn't die by anybody else's hand. Diggle kills his brother. Like I said, one good thing, Oliver did the magic. Everything else was like, well, Diggle screwed up, so that's what led to him having to, make sure he and Lyla survive. They survived, and that's technically good, but none of that would have happened if he hadn't gone like half-cocked against his brother. So, really everything was just like, great, this is exactly what we planned. His escape, him chasing you, him escaping from you, tagging him and all that stuff was exactly what Damien Darhk planned. So ultimately, everything was for the villains in this episode, and that's how it played out, which I think is entertaining for sure. It just kind of sucks. It sucks for all the characters though, but definitely love this one. Of course, definitely want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and of course I gotta ask what you guys think about Diggle having to kill Andy off in this episode, because he's had a crazy arc. Ever since he showed up and it's revealed that he's alive, this has just been the craziest arc. Some episodes were good. The beginning kind of sucked, because it was like Diggle, it seemed like he was so over the top angry in the beginning, and it's like, it seemed like he was rushing to the conclusion that his brother faked his death. It's like, maybe something else happened. But ultimately, I think as it kind of went on, it definitely got a lot better. And then the stuff more recently was really exciting, with Diggle really being on edge, because we've never seen Diggle that way. He's always super calm. It's like he can handle himself just as well as Oliver, but Oliver's the main character. Of course, he's spun off the edge a billion different times, but this is the first time we've seen Diggle do it, and it's probably for well, Oliver's lost a lot of people, so he's had a couple good reasons. But it's one of those types of reasons for Diggle as well when he lost it in this episode as well as the last couple. So I think it was a good arc. I'm surprised because it's TV and especially with it being like a comic book show, it's like, oh, nice happy ending. At least for this, I felt it was just bad 100% of the time for Diggle. I thought maybe the ending would be good because like 90% of it has been pretty much bad. Like it started off even when he was alive. He's angry at his brother the whole time. Then it's a little bit better for like one episode when you trust him, or two episodes, and then it goes bad again, and he kills Laurel, and then it's just terrible. So I was really surprised it ended on such a dark note for him, but I think it was a pretty cool way to end it. It was very interesting for sure, but I don't know what you guys thought about, the Andy Diggle arc and the way it all ended. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.